Let us begin by understanding what a practice is. A practice in PRINCE2 Project Management is an aspect of project management that must be applied consistently and throughout the project lifecycle. In simple words, every project requires various areas of consideration. For example, the budget, the timeline, the quality area, the scoping area, the risk, and so on. These are named as practices in PRINCE2 project management. But PRINCE2 defines its own specific practices, and those are in the box to the right. There are 7 practices, starting with the business case. Then we have the organization, plans, quality, risk, issues, and progress. So these are applied throughout the project lifecycle, which means that we are not applying initially the business case, then followed by organization, then plans, and so on. All these 7 are applied as and when relevant during the project lifecycle from start to finish. It is possible that in the beginning of the project, the business case is applied more and a bit of the organization practice as well. Some sort of planning will also be needed at the very beginning, and maybe very high level risk to be known, but there won't be any issues as such at the start and no progress made at the start. But as the project moves forward, then other uh, issues might start cropping in, progress may have to be tracked, and then quality may have to be defined further. Quality control will have to be performed. The plans for subsequent stages will start coming in, and organization structure could change, and more um, changes to responsibilities and roles may occur depending on the stage of the project. The business case will have to be looked into once again. So that is how the practices continue to tag to the life cycle of the project. Therefore, the practices require specific treatment of that aspect of the project management for PRINCE2 to be effective, which means that so business case is a practice, so that practice need to be applied properly. Similarly, organization is a practice that has to be applied properly for the project to be effective. And as I mentioned, there are 7 practices. These are continuously applied throughout the project's life cycle so that effective governance and delivery for the project occurs. So as an example, business case is not static. It must be updated and revalidated as the project evolves. Of course, there'll be a business case at the start, but then it'll have to be checked every now and then, specifically at the end of the stages or whenever there are significant events that can disturb or have potential to disturb the project flow. And emerging issues and risks should inform whether the project remains viable and justified. Therefore, the practices are all interconnected along with the processes, and that's the real power of the PRINCE2 project management. And these practices interact fully all the time with the 7 PRINCE2 processes which run, or the processes create the flow of the project from its start to finish. And therefore, the overall project runs in a consistent manner, is adaptable, and is strategically aligned to the organization's goals. So let us take a look at what these practices are. The business case. Every project will have an idea. It could be an opportunity or a problem, a statement, and eventually it is connected with the value, increasing the value or establishing a new value for the organization. And the business case practice is a guidance on how this idea or a project trigger is shaped into a viable investment proposal with clear definitions of success criteria, which means that the business case practice is looking into the how much investment is needed and what are the benefits of having this project in place and what are the risks inherent in undertaking this project. And it ensures that the project management remains focused on delivering benefits, fulfills the project purpose, and aligns with organizational objectives and priorities. So this practice provides extensive guidance on how the business case should be considered in detail. Next, we have the organization practice. This is about the accountabilities and the responsibilities for each of the roles in project management, and also in the delivery teams so that the production of outputs will occur. Projects bring in people from different areas, different function. Therefore, the line management, which happens in organizations, will not work for projects. Of course, every employee will have their own line manager, even during a project, if they are partially allocated to the project. And so they may end up with having a reporting to the project manager and reporting to their line manager as well. It depends on different type of the organization structure that is set up. So Prince2 defines a temporary organization structure with clear roles, responsibilities, and relationships. For example, we have a project board, we have project executive, um, we have a senior user, senior supplier, and in Prince2 Agile, we have specific tailored roles such as a chief product owner and so on. And of course, not to forget project manager and some others. And the organization practice ensures that the key or the primary interests of the project, namely the business interest, the user interest, and the supplier interest, are actively represented in both the project activities and decision-making management processes. Then we have the plans practice on the left here. Every project will require planning at different levels. So we have a overall project plan, then we have a stage-wise plan, and every subject matter team will have their own team plan and so on. So projects are delivered in stages based on a series of approved plans. So the plans practice complements the quality practice. The plans practice describes how plans are designed and developed. Typically, there's a product-based planning approach used in Prince2 Project Management. And plans need to be tailored to the needs of stakeholders across the three layers of management in Prince2, and which is the directing layer, which provides executive oversight of the project. Then we have the managing layer run by the project manager for the day-to-day control of the project and its stages. And then the delivering layer run by the team managers or product owners for creation of the product. And the plan creates the focus for communication and control of the project and its ways of working. Quality, another practice. As we know that projects always begin with a broad outline of an idea. It could be an opportunity or a problem or a challenge. And the quality practice ensures that the outline is refined so that all stakeholders clearly understand the quality attributes of the intended deliverables and how project management is responsible for ensuring these requirements are then delivered, which means it will help to define the product that is to be delivered and also the detailed specifications of that product or a set of products. And of course, not to forget quality control and those sort of activities. Risk practice. Projects are unique as compared to day-to-day business as usual or operations, which are repetitive in nature, because projects lead to creation and use of new or upgraded products created by suppliers, and it may result in procedures for using those products. And therefore, there is more uncertainty in projects as compared to repetitive operations. And therefore, this practice, in summary, addresses how the project team manages that uncertainty or a set of uncertainties by identifying them and by analyzing them, by creating response plans for those uncertainties, and then implementing them and monitoring them and communicating about them periodically or whenever needed. Then we have the issues practice. This is about assessing and responding to issues during the project, which may impact project objectives, plans, and products. And issues do not mean only the actual meaning of the word issue, such as a problem or concern, but also requests for changes to, for example, changes to requirements, or it could be a product is not meeting its agreed specification. If that's the case, then that also is an issue. Then we have, so therefore, this practice will have its own issue management procedure. And then we move on to the progress practice. So this is about the ongoing achievability of the plans. How is the plan execution going on? And it's about the monitoring of the performance and also escalation procedures if needed. For example, there may be violations of tolerances that are set for time, cost, etc. And if those are likely to occur or have occurred, then escalations will need to be done. Better if they're done in advance of the exception occurring, so that a proactive step could be taken to minimize or prevent that exception in the near future. And of course, the progress tracking is also a key part of this, and forecasting and so on, all that are parts of the progress practice. And also it helps in determining whether the project should proceed or should be paused or stopped. And then that's when the business case practice will consider the business justification, working hand in hand with the progress practice. because the progress practice provides information about the progress and the situation, and then the business case practice will review that situation and decide the progress of the project, whether the project is still viable or not. And then accordingly, the progress can be made from the progress practice. So now we are left with how to apply the 7 practices that we understood a while ago in an agile context. So while the PRINCE2 Agile Foundation course would have clarified to you the detailed workings of each of those practices, therefore what we will see here is more like a summary of that as to how each of these practices of PRINCE2 Project Management work in the PRINCE2 Agile case. So firstly, we have the business case practice. It is about the project viability and justification. And in PRINCE2 Agile, the so-called business case management project of PRINCE2 is tailored as a project canvas artifact. And in project canvas, it should have the best case, worst case, and expected case scenarios. And the worst case scenario, which is the lowest expectation of what can be delivered for the given investment and risks, will show that the project is still viable in the worst case. The most important thing in the business case tailoring for PRINCE2 Agile or Agile way of working is to define an MVP, the minimum viable product, which is a bare bones or a skeleton product, which is testable on users. Very less time and investment is spent on this MVP. It's a concept that was covered in section 1 of the course in foundation and then required in practitioner as well for the certification exam. And the MVP, for example, it could be a very basic, simple, bare bones skeleton product tried on real users, just a few users, to take their feedback as quickly as possible. And that feedback will help the organization decide whether to move in the same direction of the MVP or whether to change direction, which is known as pivot in the MVP jargon. So it could be, for example, in IT or software, you could have a simple website to sell some products online and take feedback from some real users, and they might come back with a positive feedback that, yeah, the website is quite good, it's easy to navigate, and we are happy with it, but please do add more to it in the same way. And that means that it's a positive feedback. On the other hand, if they say that, sorry, this website is not so good, it is difficult to use, and we are not clear about what the purpose of this website is, it means that the project direction is not clear. So this should be planned as early as possible and defined in the business case or the project canvas in case of PRINCE2 Agile projects. And therefore, while developing this justification in the form of a project canvas, it is also important to assess how incremental product delivery will impact the project viability and early realization of benefits. And that's because traditional projects will have single delivery at the end, which is the waterfall or the predictive approach. Of course, you can have the predictive or waterfall approach also working in an incremental manner. You could have, for example, a construction project, railway construction, a metro transportation system in a city, where in stage 1 you have the completion of one section of the city open for the commuters to commute using the train. And then the stage 2 is about opening section 2 of the city or another area of the city for the people to commute in the trains in another section of the city. It's incremental, but still it's a sort of waterfall. But then when there's more frequent increments, shorter life cycle, for example, 1 month or 2 month increments, and there's a feedback taken from each increment and applied to the next cycle of delivery, then it becomes truly agile. And this is where that information in terms of how that way of working will impact project viability and early realization of benefits should also be stated. And because PRINCE2 Agile projects are good for uncertain situations, and the project canvas will need some assumptions to be stated, and so that those assumptions can be tested. For example, the project might assume that the output of the product will work in the market, but there's no guarantee due to dynamics of the business environment, and therefore this MVP, the minimum viable product, which is like an early stage prototype, will be a key concept to be experimented. before the full project canvas can be created in the initiation stage. Therefore, this MVP will come into during the starting up a project process in the outline business case.